It's my favorite time of the year and I have a very special video to share with you all today. It's going to be a long one, so grab yourself a cozy drink and a nice little snack and let's sew a family heirloom tree skirt together. Hey guys, Amber here, and today I am here with a very special video that I have wanted to do for a very long time, and that is my Christmas tree skirt. Ever since having my baby boy and starting a family, there has been this tree skirt that I am obsessed with. I'll insert some pictures now of the inspiration behind what I am going to be creating today. This tree skirt is from Neiman Marcus. It's no longer selling. However, it is such a beautiful tree skirt to me. There's just something about it that I'm absolutely in love with. And what I really love is the fact that making this at home yourself, yes, it's going to be a process and yes, it's going to take time, but it is going to be so worth it because it's customizable and you can cater it to your own family, which I find so sweet. When I saw this, I instantly thought, oh, it would be so cool if the Nutcrackers were of our family. I can do my husband as a Nutcracker, me as like the ballerina Nutcracker, and our son and future family members as well. When they come into this world, I could just add them on to this tree skirt. Since I'm a painter and this is something that I enjoy doing, so I'm going to choose to paint the Nutcrackers on in the end, which I'm actually really excited about painting on fabric because I've done it before and I enjoy that process. So I think that this is going to be a really fun make, and it's going to become such a beautiful family heirloom for my family, which really brings my heart such joy. So I'm going to go over some of the materials that I purchased for this project, starting with the main fabric for the Nutcrackers are going to be painted on. I wanted this particular material to be pretty high quality and to feel very nice so that it feels luxurious, and in order for it to give that really substantial feel that I know that the Neiman Marcus one would give, because another thing about this Neiman Marcus one is that it is incredibly expensive, not obtainable for everyone. So being able to make it on your own for the smallest fraction of the price, and you just have to put in some extra work, it makes it so much more meaningful, and your bank account doesn't have to suffer from it. So I got this really beautiful fabric. If I'm being honest, I cannot even remember what this material was when I purchased it. This is upholstery fabric, I will say that. I do know that I got this in the upholstery section at Hobby Lobby. And it's super soft, and I wanted like a soft twilled canvas, and this is what it looks like a bit up close. It's very, very nice. And then the accent fabric for the front, I found this velvety maroon red fabric, which is so beautiful. I do not buy polyester fabric normally, but I'm almost positive that that's what this is. It's like a polyester spandex blend of some sort, but it is really pretty and it's going to work perfectly for this tree skirt. I'm going to really like this, and it's really pretty. So we're going to use that for that trim. And so next I needed to find a backing for this tree skirt, and I ended up getting the same material as the red but just in a green. So that's what the back of the tree skirt would look like. Now for this next part, I did struggle trying to find trim. I was looking everywhere for trim and trying to find trim that matches, both tassel trim and just decorative trim to go on the tree skirt. So I found this trim off of Amazon, and it looks like this, and it's really beautiful. I do wish it was a little less shiny, but it doesn't look bad. And what I decided I'm going to do, because I'm not a huge fan of the way that the front of this looks, because it's kind of, I don't even know if you can tell on camera what color this looks like in person, but it's kind of yellowish, all of this decorative detail and the ribbons that are in here. But the back of this, the back I feel like looks a lot more beautiful and what I had in mind. So I'm going to be using the back as the front for the tassels, and I think I'm going to like that a lot more. So I have this for the tassel trim that's going to go around the perimeter of the skirt, And then I found this one, which the part that I'm disappointed with this, it's the perfect shape. It's really nice, but I just wish they didn't weave this slightly more like orangey gold throughout. I feel like it would have matched better. I ordered quite a few to see what would match, and these two gave me the best match. So that's what I'm going to be using as my trim. It's going to be these two together. And I think once the whole project is done, you're not going to even be able to tell that they're completely different. No one's going to be like, those two tassels don't even match in color. I am just excited to get started. I have been wanting to start on this for some time now. So getting started is going to be fun. I'm making this pattern completely from scratch. I've never done something like this before, but I am excited to see how it turns out. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into this video. To begin, here are the list of materials that you will need to pick up from the store, starting with your white/cream fabric, aka the fabric that I'll be painting the nutcrackers on. You will need about a yard of that fabric. For the burgundy ruffle fabric, you will need about a yard. The green backing fabric, a yard and a half. The decorative gold trim, 6.5 yards. And the gold tassel trim, 5.5 yards. I was a little bit generous with each of these amounts just to ensure that I had enough fabric and trim to complete this project. Below the list of materials, you'll see what the final template will look like. And I'm going to break down this template further so that you also have the opportunity to recreate this at home as well. Here is a breakdown of 1/4 of your template. You are going to need a large piece of paper that will accommodate a 24-inch square. And as you can see here, you are going to transfer these measurements to your paper. I have marked everything out as clear as I possibly could, hoping that this is very helpful and easy to read so that you can recreate this as well. So what I ended up doing was taking my 24-inch square and folding that in half at a diagonal. And that gave me that main diagonal line that is going through the center of this 1/4 of a circle. And I then went in with each of these measurements that I've marked out here with a little dash mark and just connected each of those dash marks to give me my final template. You will then take each separate section so that you can cut out every pattern piece needed for this tree skirt. Starting with the burgundy center circle, you will trace over this portion of your template. And after you trace over that portion, you are going to add 1/2 inch seam allowance to that outer curved edge. And you will end up with a piece that should be 8.5 inches in each direction. Next, you are going to trace over this white/cream section, aka the nutcracker panel. And after tracing over this section, you are going to do the exact same thing by adding 1/2 inch seam allowance around that entire template this time. And you should end up with these measurements. You then will grab the burgundy ruffled section, which is this section highlighted here. This is the only piece that you are going to be altering. So this is what you will start off with. You will take this template that you have traced out and add an additional 2.5 inches to both the front and back side of this template piece so that you go to a piece that looks like this. That's just longer. This is to accommodate for those ruffles. This is going to allow you to be able to gather the fabric to get the ruffled look for that section. And your new template is going to look something like this. These will be the new measurements on that template piece. And to this template piece, you are going to add 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around. So this will be your final template piece. I hope that this explains exactly what you are going to need for your pieces. These are your final template pieces. That 24 by 24 inch piece and your 4 other template pieces, your half circle, your nutcracker panel piece, and the 2 pieces for the ruffled fabric section. After you are done getting all of those measurements, your pattern pieces would look something like this. It's going to be quite large, and I am going to be working off of this corner piece. You're going to have your pieces for the ruffled wine color, the center circle piece, and the nutcracker panel pieces. All right, so let's get to cutting some fabric. So I'm first going to go ahead and start off with cutting out my green fabric using the template that I just made first, and this is the backing. So to do so, I'm going to fold my fabric in fours. After folding the fabric in fours, you are going to lay your pattern piece down along the edges of each side of the fabric that doesn't have an opening. Then using that same template piece, I laid out my circle fabric that I just cut, and we'll be moving this 1/4 quadrant around the entire circle of the fabric, and I'm adding all of the markings necessary so that I can cut out the final star shape for the tree skirt. If you find that it's easier for you to cut out the shape first instead of lifting up the paper to add the markings, totally feel free to do so. I just wanted to keep my original template in place just in case I choose to make another skirt in the future. You'll be left with the final shape of the skirt. So I'm going to fold this and set this aside because we won't need this for a while. So next up, I'm going to be cutting out my Nutcracker panel pieces out of the creamy white fabric. Next up, we will be cutting out our burgundy ruffled fabric, being sure that you're using the template that you added the extra seam allowance for. You will need to cut out 8 pieces going in one direction and 8 pieces going in the opposite direction, and you will end up with 16 pieces in total. Lastly, just like we did with the green backing fabric, we are going to fold our maroon fabric in fours in order to cut out the center circle pattern piece. When you're done, your pieces are going to look something like this. You will have one piece for the back panel. This is folded in half, but it's going to be in the shape of the full tree skirt. You're going to have one piece for the center circumference of the tree skirt. You're going to have 8 panels for the ruffled edge of the tree skirt, 8 going in one direction and 8 flipped going in the other direction. And you're going to have 8 pieces for the Nutcracker panels. I am so happy because now all of the pieces are cut and I get to start on the fun part, which is assembling the tree skirt. So to begin, I'm going to start by adding a basting stitch to both the top and bottom of all of the ruffle pieces so I can get them prepped and ready to ruffle. I'm going to test out on one piece first if I want to do 1 row of basting stitches or if I want to do 2 rows of basting stitches at the top and bottom, and I'll see what I like best. So I've decided I'm going to just do 1 row of basting stitches on the top and bottom. I think that's going to be plenty and it's going to give me the effect that I want. So we're going to do 1 row of basting stitches top and bottom of all 16 pieces of the ruffled fabric at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So I've completed doing my basting stitches on both sides that will make up the ruffles, and now I am going to start ruffling the fabric. And to do so, all that you're going to do, you're going to pull on one string that you have at the end of your fabric and just begin ruffling your fabric up. At this point, you are going to want to utilize your template to get the right measurement for how long you're going to want to make your ruffles. So this is the actual size of each panel. So I'm going to go over about 1/4 to 1/2 an inch on each side here, so I have enough seam allowance to be able to sew them all together. I have just completed both sides of the ruffling detail, and that did take some time, but it's going to be so worth it, I know, when everything is put together. So I just ruffled everything and clipped the ends just to make sure everything stays at the right size. And you will see that the ruffles are going in opposite directions. Essentially, this is kind of what they are going to be doing. They're going to be in this V shape. So that's why we needed 8 in one direction and 8 flipped going in the other direction. So we get to move on to our next step. So it is the following day and I am so excited to continue. So yesterday I finished ruffling all of the maroon ruffle pieces. So what I will be doing now, just to give you a quick idea, I decided that I wanted to sew the trim on the underside of my white fabric. Being that it has that orange hue going throughout it and the tips are the exact same color as the tassels, that's all that I want to show. I want this to be pleasing to the eye for me, and I know myself and I know that if I see that orange tinge, it is just not going to do it for me personally. Now, if you have a color that you like, I would just sew it right on top, but I'm going to be sewing mine underneath. So I will be using the same color thread for the white when I do it on the actual piece. However, this is just an idea. We will be folding under the seam allowance and sewing the trim to the underside. That way, the only thing that shows on the front on mine is going to be the pretty gold trim. So to hop into what we're going to do first, we are going to be prepping all of our white panels, aka the Nutcracker panels. This is where the Nutcracker is going to be painted on. So I'm going to show you how I prep all of these for the trim. So to prep these pieces, what we are going to be doing is cutting a seam up from the centermost point. So that center point that it comes down to here. This is the whole piece. We are going to be cutting going up so that we could fold under the seam allowance. So you're just going to find your centermost point. So in order to make this seam allowance reach 1/2 inch on either side, you do have to go up 3/4 inch from this point. So that is what I'm going to do on every single piece. I'm gonna just mark 3/4 inch with a little marker on every single piece and cut a split like so. So repeat that to all of your pieces. So now that all of my Nutcracker panel pieces are completed, I will be cutting out my trim and the length of these panel pieces. I now have all 16 pieces cut out of my trim. And my particular trim, I don't know if this will be universal for everyone's trim. I kind of assume that it will, but depending on the trim that you get, if you get one that's weaved like this, more than likely the ends are going to have a lot of fray. And for me to kind of seal those ends in, you can do one of two things. You could burn the ends very carefully. Obviously, you want to be careful if you're doing that because you don't want to hurt yourself or the things around you, obviously. So be very careful if you choose to burn the ends, or you could choose to use like a super glue or something to just make those ends tacky so they could stop fraying. But I'm gonna burn the ends off camera and I'll be back once everything's sealed together. So I have now completed just burning all of those edges. I essentially I don't have a lighter, so I just kind of waved it in front of a flame on a candle and just pressed it between my fingers to melt the fibers together. Since this is a synthetic fiber, it melts and you could just rub it between your fingers. It's a little hot, so you'd want to be careful. If this portion were to show on my finished product, I would probably use the super glue in order to make everything nice and neat without it showing the burnt ends, because if you could see, the ends are burnt. But it's totally fine. That's what I expected to happen, but they're going to be hidden anyway. So the next thing that I will be doing, I will be taking my pieces and laying it right on top, just like so. And I want to push it to the front as close as possible. So push it as close as possible to the center point. And we're going to just sew this straight down. The only part that I'm going to pin will be this front section so that I could get it underneath my presser foot easily. And essentially what you're going to see on the front, this braided loop edge and a little bit of this edge peeking through, just like that. So this is my goal, to sew all the way down on both sides so it could look like this. So this turned out exactly how I hoped it would. It's stitched on there very nicely and I'm excited. So I'm going to repeat that step to the opposite side now. So your panel should look something like this, and we are going to repeat those steps to all of the panel pieces. I have completed all of the panels, and now I get to sew together this scrunched ruffled velvety fabric and attach it to these panels here. This is slowly but surely coming together. This is not a quick race. This is a slow and steady wins the race. So this is a piece that you're going to need to take your time with, but in the end, I know it's going to be worth it. So I'm excited. Our next step now is going to be to sew together all of our ruffled fabric. We're going to sew down this center seam to connect the two panels. The wide end is on the edge and the more narrow end is on the inside. So I'm going to just sew all of these together, each section. So you'll have 8 of these in total when you're done. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I have switched back to my maroon thread in my sewing machine, and so I'm just going to straight stitch down with the 1/2 inch seam allowance down the center of each of these, and I will be overlocking the center of each of these as well after I straight stitch it down. Attaching the burgundy ruffled fabric to my Nutcracker panels. I began to sew this down on my sewing machine with the wrong side facing up. It was a lot harder for me to sew efficiently and neatly with it facing the wrong side up, so I decided to unpick the stitches that I did and reattach the ruffles with my pins placed vertically instead of horizontally so I could sew directly over top of them with my panel facing right side up. I've now completed attaching all of the velvet pieces to my Nutcracker panels. I will be attaching all of my panels now along the seam. And I'm going to show you how I do this, because along the Nutcracker panels, I'm going to want gold trim, the same gold trim that I put here along the edge. I'm going to want that gold trim sticking out between each panel to help separate the panels further, just like the inspiration photo. However, the inspiration photo had a different trim. They did like a rope trim, but I'm going to be using my same trim. I tried 2 different methods out to see what I liked best, and I'm going to be going with this method here, where I sandwich the trim between both panels. I will show you as I go, because this part's a little bit confusing, but I like it best with this pressed flat and each side sewn down, because then this lays perfectly flat with the trim sticking up at a 90-degree angle straight up and down, which I like, versus this method that I did where I attached it the same way, where I sandwiched it between. However, I didn't finish it with opening the seams. I finished it by serging. Both of them work. However, this one has this like lump in it, which I don't like. I want this to lay flat. So I'm going to be going with this method here, and I'm going to show you how I go about doing this. So now we get to attach everything in its circle. So first things first, we are going to need to cut a trim piece to go between each section. Because we are not going to need one for where the opening is at, because we will be adding bias tape there at the very end, we only are going to need 7 pieces of trim cut at the same length as this side portion of the Nutcracker panels. So to show you that, it looks like I'm going to be able to get about 7 of these in here comfortably. So now I will show you how to assemble this. The plan is to only have these top loops of the decorative trim showing. So what I'll be doing here is taking the right side of my fabric, and I'm going to be flipping this right side down to my fabric with my loops facing inward, because basically the goal is to let this flip out. So I'm going to place this inward, and for my particular trim, the perfect guide is going to be this second line here, so that when I sew this at 1/2 inch seam allowance, the only part that's going to be sticking out are these little loops, and that's the goal. So I'm going to line this up with my edge. I'm going to begin pinning this down in place where I need it. Okay, so that's there. Now I'm going to flip this back to the right side, and what I will be doing is taking my other panel and laying this down with the right side directly on top, and making sure everything is sandwiched perfectly. So this is what you want. You want a nice little sandwich. The rest of this fabric, I simply am going to just match up the ends here. And now this white cream fabric, I'll be sewing 1/2 inch seam allowance going all the way down this section. Now that you have sewn that together, you will have 3 pieces of fabric, the cream outside pieces, and the center gold trim. You are going to split these in half, taking the gold trim and the cream fabric to one side, and the cream fabric on the opposite side going the other direction, so that these panels can lay flat. You are going to top stitch closely next to the gold trim on either side, and you will be left with panels that lay nice and flat. Next, I will be cutting out the center keyhole looking section on the center velvet circle. You are going to mark out a 3-inch circle at the center of your fabric in a line that goes straight down to one side. This will be the opening that goes around the base of your tree. After cutting out that section, I'm going to fold over my seam allowance at 1/2 inch and pin it all in place. I then will be taking my gold trim and attaching it to the wrong side of the fabric, letting the gold loops peek out from the outer edge only, like I've been doing in all of the previous steps. After sewing that in place, I will be attaching that center circle piece to the rest of my tree skirt, ensuring that the openings are attached to one another. I then will be neatly top stitching this down as well, and I will be left with 2 rows of top stitching that looks something like this. You then are going to repeat that same step of creating that keyhole opening on the backing of your tree skirt, cutting out that 3-inch circle at the center and one straight line going down one side, making sure that straight line is going to the inside point and not the outside point of your star shape. Once all of those steps are completed, I will be taking my gold tassel trim and attaching it right side to the top portion of my tree skirt with the tassels facing inward. I will be attaching those tassels all the way around and securing that in place with a basting stitch. I then will be attaching my backing fabric with the wrong sides facing one another all the way around the edges of my tree skirt and securely sewing that in place with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, making sure that I don't close up the keyhole section where I'll be adding my bias tape later on. So I'm gonna show you what I have gotten done, and it's looking so good. So, okay, the last thing that you saw was me last night sewing together the last bit of the tassels. I was putting the tassels in the tree skirt. So this here was what you saw me do last night. I did my final stitch along that underneath those basting stitches that I did, and I ran this through the serger. Because this is so thick, the serge is a little bit wonky, but it's okay. I mean, it's doing the job. This is not coming apart. It's staying together, and that's all that matters. And I flipped everything inside out. Bias tape is going to be going along this entire intersection here. So what I'm going to do is the bias tape in 3 pieces. I'm going to make a piece that's for this side, and a separate piece for the circle hole. And then I'm going to need some separate pieces for the ties. Here are the bias tape measurements that you will need to cut out. You'll need to cut out 18 inches by 2 inches for your main closures, 15 inches by 2 inches for the ties, and 12 inches by 2 inches for the center circle closure. To make the bias tape, I folded the rectangle in half, unfolded that, and folded the edges into the center on either side, and then folded that in half one last time. After creating my bias tape, I went ahead and sewed the edges of all of those pieces. I did make my ties a little bit shorter, and I wish that I made them longer. So the measurements that I put on the screen are the measurements that I would have preferred to use for the bias tape on the final tree skirt. I am now attaching the ties to the top of my tree skirt, and I'm just going to stitch those down in place so they won't move when applying the final bias tape. My son woke up from his nap here and decided to join me for a little bit. I am now taking my bias tape for the main closures, and I'm folding that top edge over and applying that to the right side of my tree skirt. And I'm going to pin that all the way down. I will be sewing that down in place, and you may have a little bit of overhang at the bottom, and you can go ahead and cut off the extra. After you sew down that front side, go ahead and fold the bias tape over to the back side and top stitch that down into place. We are then going to repeat those steps to the opposite side of the main closure, as well as to the center circle section. Alright, so it is a couple of days later from when you last saw me. I have completed the tree skirt, which you saw in the last clip, and I'll show you now a glimpse of what it's looking like. I am overjoyed because it turned out so beautiful. I'm just really excited to get painting now because that is the next step. So you will see that the tree skirt is complete. Please ignore the drawing that you're seeing on it right now. If you could see that, I started to get my stencil on there so I can get an idea of how I was going to apply it. So there you go. The tree skirt is complete, and you can totally stop at this point if painting on here is intimidating or it's just not something that you want to do for your tree skirt. That's totally fine, but that is going to be my next step. Now that the tree skirt is complete, I get to begin transferring my design over. Now I'll put up somewhere in the screen on one of these sides, I will put up a very quick time lapse of me designing the nutcrackers that I will be applying to this tree skirt. So I wanted to keep the authenticity of what the traditional nutcracker looks like, but The elements that I will be changing are things like the skin tone, eye color, hair textures, and things like that, just to help it look a little bit more like my family while still keeping that traditional look. So all of the Nutcrackers, I completely came up with these designs on my own. For the male Nutcrackers, I looked up the traditional Nutcracker figures so that I can get an idea of what they look like and model them in my own style, but still keeping that original look of a Nutcracker. So for my husband, I gave him very dark hair, dark beard, because he has dark hair, dark beard. I'll be changing the eye color to hazel, making sure I had dark brows, dark stash, fair skin, and I am doing all those things because that resembles him. For my son is 1.5 years old, but these are elements of him. He has the loose curls, he has caramel skin, brown eyes, and things like that on a traditional Nutcracker. Things that I for sure wanted to make sure I incorporated on each Nutcracker had to do with our faith. So I made sure that I added a cross and I added the Star of Bethlehem to every single Nutcracker, just as a nod to what Christmas is about in the first place. And so I really wanted to make sure I added those in, and it makes my heart happy and it will make my family's heart happy. The inspiration for mine, I just looked up ballerinas like in the plays for the Nutcracker and all of those things, and just regular ballerinas. I just looked those up. Those are the designs. You could see my thought process of where things are gonna head. I am the type of person to wing it. I like to have a lot of preliminary ideas, but when it comes to the actual painting process on the tree skirt, I'm going to be going with the flow. I have the colors in mind, but that's all I have are the colors. I can perfect everything else in real time as I'm painting. That's the best way that my brain likes to work. So I got the line work done, as you can see, and the only thing that I could think of that I'd be able to do to transfer these to the tree skirt is printing them out. So that's what I did on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Basically, all that I did was, you could take a light box, you could use your window. So I just printed my stencils out like normal, and I cut them out of the paper like you see here, and I just laid them down on my light box with the face going down, and with just graphite pencil, I very hardly went over all of those lines to transfer it to the back of my paper. And then after transferring it to the back, I taped it down where I want it on the tree skirt. I just rubbed using the back of the makeup brush. It's a rounded makeup brush, something just round and soft, and I rubbed that graphite into the fibers on the tree skirt. I'll show you now what those lines turned out looking like from the stencil. You'll see that it's very, very light. This is totally doable. I could see it, and that's all that matters. I just needed to be able to see the work so that I could paint on top of it. And because it's my design, even if some things are a little bit light, it doesn't matter because I know the drawing. So if you don't have a light box or you don't want to use a window, what I recommend doing is printing your image out on the reverse. So flip your image, and you could just draw directly on top of the paper, on top of the lines, just like that. It's just gonna be a little bit more difficult to see where you've already drawn. That's another option, and then you can just lay it down and it'll be in the right orientation when you lay it down to transfer it all there. So either way works, but I'm gonna do the light box method, and I will show you that now. I'm using an 8B pencil, and I'm using a 0.5 lead. So I am feeling so excited because I get to do my personal favorite part, which is paint. So I'm not going to be able to explain how to paint, the artistry of designing something like this. That's a topic for a completely different video that in the future I have ideas on giving tips and tricks and teaching on the inner workings of my thought process going into drawing and painting. I'm going to show you guys the process of me painting now in a nice relaxed state. I'm not going to be talking over all the details of where I'm applying paint or how I'm applying paint. I'm just going to let you guys watch and enjoy the painting part of this tree skirt tutorial. Let's go ahead and jump into this. I'm really excited. Thank you all so much for watching, especially if you have made it all the way to the end of this video. I appreciate you so much for taking out time to watch this video. I hope with the help of this video, you too will be able to make your dream tree skirt, and I would love to see it. If you have been enjoying my videos so far, I would love for you to stick around and subscribe so I can continue making more videos. And please like and comment and let me know if there's anything that you want to see from me next. I hope you all have a beautifully blessed day, night, evening, wherever you are in the world, and I will see you all next time.